Hey everyone, Casual Console Gamer here with another review. I finally got around to playing Sonic Frontiers, a game that I've wanted to play for a while, but was hesitant due to the technical issues it had at launch. So, is Sonic Frontiers worth playing in 2024, and has the technical issues been hammered out? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. Sonic Frontiers is an open-world, third-person action-adventure game, where you play as the iconic blue hedgehog. It has combat, exploration, a ton of collectibles, and multiple different islands to explore, from green hills and forests to a vast desert and an active volcano. It's going to run you about 15 to 20 hours if you want to just mainline the story, and significantly longer if you're the type of gamer that wants to find every item and defeat every enemy. At full price, Sonic Frontiers will run you about $60 US, but it does go on sale at times. If you're a huge Sonic fan, then Frontiers may be worth it for you, but as someone who is only a casual enjoyer of the Sonic games, the price tag was way too high for what you get here, in my opinion. I would recommend that you pick up Sonic Frontiers on sale for $30 at most, which it does pretty frequently since the game came out in 2022. Overall, I would rate Sonic Frontiers a 7 out of 10.
Yes, it's all coming online. The ancient secrets will be mine.
Let's talk about the technical state of the game. I played Sonic Frontiers on the Xbox Series X, and unfortunately, there are still some technical issues. Let's start with the frame rate. There are two graphical options available: a performance mode that strives to maintain 60 FPS, and a quality mode, or graphics mode, that improves the visuals at the cost of reducing the frame rate to 30 FPS. Right off the bat, quality mode is pretty much useless. At 30 frames per second, Sonic Frontiers is almost unplayable. For a game that requires fast movement and on-the-fly changes in both combat and during puzzles, 30 FPS just makes it that much more difficult to play. What makes it worse is that it's not a stable 30 FPS. It does dip below that pretty regularly. During cutscenes or if there's a lot going on, the frame rate tanks. So sticking with performance mode, the game is mostly stable and playable, but there are still major technical issues even while it's on performance mode. For starters, the pop-in for both the graphical settings is the worst I've ever seen. There are entire puzzles with platforms and rails that require you to progress to new areas that just pop in as you get close to them. It wouldn't be so bad if these were just optional side activities, which most of them are, but these are integral parts of the game that you need to do in order to reach some required items. For example, you may need to reach a Chaos Emerald in the distance, and the waypoint directs you to a floating island or an area off the coast with no visible way to reach it. From where Sonic is standing, there's no rails or platforms to get there. But as you're zipping around the ground, new platforms and rails suddenly pop in, and now you can traverse to this new area. But if you were completely lost and you went to a high vantage point looking for a way forward, you wouldn't have seen it. And Sonic Frontiers is an open world game, which means these maps are pretty big. You can't search every inch of the map for a platform hidden due to some technical limitation. Imagine if you were playing Breath of the Wild and you were trying to find a shrine, so you climb up to this high vantage point to mark them out, but because of the technical limitations of the game, you can't see anything a few dozen feet away from your character. So you need to walk around and hope that objects just materialize. It becomes incredibly frustrating after a while. Another big technical issue is the camera. We're going to talk about the camera when we discuss gameplay and combat again, but let's just focus on the technical aspects of it. Sonic Frontiers is a fast-paced game. Sonic moves quickly, riding on rails and other things, to move across these puzzles and platforms, and the camera has to keep up with them. Does it do a good job doing that? No. There are times when the camera is cutting all over the place trying to follow this blue blur. You want to ride a rail in a loop? The camera will follow it a bit, then it'll spin around crazily and only show you Sonic's face, so you have no idea what's coming up next. There are sections where the 3D game goes 2D, where the camera is locked sideways so that Sonic can do these sections, and they are quite frequent. But if you want to look around for a moment to find a hidden coin or an item that's just out of sight, too bad, the camera's completely locked in this side-on direction. Worse, what if you never wanted to do that section at all and you just accidentally touched a bumper or speed boost out in the open world? Too bad, you're going to be locked into this puzzle, and no amount of attempting to turn the camera around or get Sonic out of these situations will help. Or maybe you're in an area where the camera is locked into a position that makes it difficult for you to see a hazard ahead, like a jump that Sonic needs to make or a rail he needs to catch. Well, it's too bad. Just hope that you can find it when you launch off the platform. The camera is just as much of a hindrance in this game as any enemies, in my opinion. Most of the challenges I had while playing Sonic Frontiers were directly related to the camera positioning. But there's also another problem with the fast pace, often spinning and turning camera: motion sickness. I'm not the type of person that frequently gets sick when I play games, but during Frontiers, there were multiple times when I had to pause and set my controller down and take a walk just to calm my stomach. The spinning camera, the fast movement, the jumps and the heights, it did make me sick. It might be better on a smaller screen or if you're quite a distance away from it, but my setup has me directly facing a large TV that's only a few feet away, so that my entire vision is filled with the screen, and it got quite bad. What doesn't help is that whenever Sonic uses his boost ability for more speed, something that activates this limited bar of energy and stamina, the screen begins to blur and reduces the focus of the surroundings to just Sonic himself. It severely limits what you can see in the peripherals. It makes the game really ugly to look at when you're boosting across these environments.
Tails? Amy? Oh. Whew. Looks like I'm the only one who made it out of that. Whatever it was. Whew.
So that's it for the technicals. Let's talk about the graphics itself. Sonic Frontiers does look good, but it's not really great. The characters and the environments are bright and colorful, full of objects and details, but the scenery does tend to blend together. The first island is a lot of green hills and forests that stretch out into the distance, but these areas aren't broken up by much else, so it's easy to get lost because there aren't very many memorable things or objects that you can use as a marker or a waypoint. Things get a little bit more interesting in the second island, which is this vast open desert with this few oases. But again, it quickly becomes a lot of brown and tans, and you can again get lost because it's very similar. Then the third island is this volcano, surrounded by white clouds. And as interesting as an active volcano is, the lava that comes from it is only on one tiny spot of the map, making the rest just this dark gray. And that's it. There are more islands to explore, but they are just repeats of the first island. They're sections that the developers cut out and then placed at the end of the game because people complained there was just too much green during the beta tests. The character models for Sonic and his crew are pretty much fine, just nothing special. Throughout the game, Sonic will enter these portals to new, self-contained areas that are influenced or taken from previous entries in the franchise. These areas are timed with coins to collect and achievements to reach if you beat the area under a specific time or with enough rings. The graphics on these levels are pretty good, and I could spot a lot of the environments from past games, but they're also pretty sparse on decoration and they're incredibly short.
Sorry, kid, but I've got a job to do.
If we are fortunate, it will destroy you.
Alright, confession time. I'm not a huge fan of the Sonic games. I had an NES growing up, which led to the SNES, then the N64, and then finally the GameCube. I did not have a Genesis or a PlayStation. I didn't play much of the Sonic games until I was later in my life, and I'll be honest, I do prefer Mario. So when discussing the story, I'm not an expert on all things Sonic. I know a bit, enough to recognize that the story is pretty good if you're a fan of Sonic. There's enough there to keep it interesting, although there are some issues. Mainly that some of the lore and story can be missed if you don't go out of your way to search for it. The story starts pretty simple. Dr. Eggman is messing around with ancient ruins when he's sucked inside this cyberspace. There's a giant vortex, and Sonic and his friends are also brought inside. While looking for a way out, and with his friends becoming digital versions of themselves, Sonic needs to help them by collecting their memory fragments and keys in this open world to unlock the Chaos Emeralds. Defending this cyberspace are giant titans, which act like end bosses on each island. Sonic needs to get all the Chaos Crystals in each island to turn into Super Sonic, defeat the Titan guarding the island, and then go on to the next one to start the process over again. Along the way, Sonic learns more about the original creators of the ruins, who are an advanced alien species that were escaping the destruction of their planet. That's pretty much it without getting too deeply into spoilers. As I said earlier, it's easy to miss out on some of the story lore and the character building if you miss the collectible memories that are throughout the islands. But even if you don't get them all, and you have a pretty good idea what's going on, the story isn't groundbreaking or incredible, but it will leave Sonic fans satisfied.
Right. You said Titans earlier, plural.
Darn it.
I guess this isn't over until I bop all the big bots. Sorry, Amy.
I'm feeling more like my old self. It's working. Keep going and don't keep me waiting.
I'll be back before you can do a fortune card reading. See ya!
Alright, let's talk about the most important aspect of the game. Gameplay. Sonic is an open world game, meaning he is free to explore each island. But unlike Breath of the Wild or an Ubisoft game, the open world is more of an excuse to play minigames. That's what I feel that Sonic Frontiers mostly is, a collection of minigames. The world is littered with platforming sections where the 3D open world is reduced to one side on a camera angle, and the reward is either a key or a memory fragment or an upgrade to Sonic's attack or defense stat. These sections can be fun, although I found their difficulty could swing wildly in the direction of either mindlessly simple to extremely convoluted and frustrating. There wasn't a real steady progression as the game progressed. There were simple puzzles right towards the end of the game, or nearly impossible time challenge on the very first island. Aside from the platforming, there are multiple puzzles. Walking over lighted blocks to unlock a section of the map, reflecting attacks in a certain amount of time, collecting parts from crates as the floor sinks into lava. There's a wide variety of activities in the open world. Then there are the mini games that are just thrown into this video game. There's a shooting hacking mini game where you fly around like R-Type and shoot enemies to unlock a computer. There's a pinball machine where you need to score as many points as possible to unlock a Chaos Emerald. And there's even a crane game. It feels like the developers had a ton of ideas for minigames and just threw them all in, wherever they fit in Frontiers or not. Sonic also has different small levels you can enter by spending gears at altars. These worlds resemble classic Sonic, but in 3D. They're really short, with the goal to clear them in as short amount of time as possible, collect 5 red coins, or end the level with so many rings. Each time you do, you're rewarded with keys that unlock vaults, each that hold a Chaos Emerald. Finally, the gameplay includes combat, and it pretty much sucks. It's really basic with an attack that you can combo, and later on you'll learn a skill that lets you auto-combo, so it even takes away that thinking that you need to do, with new abilities added as you gain skill points. The camera auto-locks on enemies, but it can be really hit or miss. The auto-lock feature can cause a lot of problems in the traversal sections and the puzzles, since sometimes it doesn't go where you want or locks onto the wrong object and you shoot off in the wrong direction. The combat is simple and I barely ever died to enemies. Combat is accompanied by bosses. Different from the Titans, which are the end boss of each island, these mini-bosses litter the world and give gears to open levels when they die. Some are a straight-up fight, while others have some kind of puzzle mechanic to keep it interesting. They are the best part of the open world, with many unique varieties. You may have to run up a massive boss's leg, dodging projectiles the entire time until striking its head, or maybe you ride a rail, coloring it beneath your feet as you travel up to get close enough to attack the boss's body. They were nearly all fun. And that's really it. The game is fun, but frustrating at times. It can be really easy practically playing itself, while other times I was foaming at the mouth when Sonic would just fall off a platform because the locking function targeted the wrong thing, or the camera twisted at the wrong side, and I couldn't see where I was going. There are 2 other major problems I have with the gameplay that I want to highlight here. The first is with the platforming. There's a problem with how you judge where Sonic is in relation to objects in the world. For example, is his character model under a coin or a ring to grab it? Or is he currently over a platform when I'm jumping over it? Mario used to have this problem too when it transitioned to 3D, and it takes a few things to solve it. Obviously, having a good camera is key, but shadows play a big part as well. If you can see Sonic's shadow beneath him when you jump, you know you're over a platform. But if Sonic's shadow isn't that visible and the platforms you jump on are mostly dark, it makes it much more difficult, and that's the case in this game. I lost track of the number of times I fell off a platform or died because I didn't know where Sonic was actually in relation to a platform. It's a huge problem, and it's made worse by the camera and Sonic's speed. Sonic moves very fast, and sometimes you overshoot a platform by a very large margin. The second issue I have is with the puzzles and the platforms in the open world. The ground is littered with these speed boosts and bumper pieces, and you may think that they're there to propel Sonic faster or help him navigate this massive world that the developers created, but you'd be wrong. They were almost always there to trap you into a puzzle. As you run across the open world, you will inevitably touch one of these speed boosts, launching Sonic into a platforming section and locking the camera in place, preventing any movement from Sonic except side to side. It locks you into place, and if you don't want to do this particular platforming section because you already have enough items or you're on your way to do something else, well, that's too bad. You need to either find a place to fall off of it, which is not something you can always do right away, or complete it. It's frustrating as all hell, and I found myself having to avoid any speed traps and bumpers as I ran.
I know you'll do great. I want to hear all about it when you come back.
Sonic Frontiers soundtrack is fantastic. It's a mix of high-energy techno music, classic Sonic tracks, and these mid-2000-like alternative rock songs for the boss battles. It's definitely a soundtrack to listen to on your own on YouTube. To go with the music, the voice acting in Frontiers is pretty good as well. There isn't much to say about it other than that. Which brings me to the conclusion of another review. So is Sonic Frontiers worth playing in 2024? Sure, provided you're a fan of Sonic and you pick up the game on sale. I wouldn't recommend paying full price for it, and you need to understand that there's still some technical issues with the game. Because of all the positives and negatives that we've already talked about, I gave Sonic Frontiers a 7 out of 10. If you're liking the content, consider subscribing and leaving a like or comment on the video. Thanks for watching.